Morning, friends. It's breakfast with the fat man. Welcome to Iowa. It's like 85 degrees and it's not even 10 o'clock, or a little after 10 o'clock. Humidity. That's what goes you in the Midwest. It's the humidity. You got quick trip for breakfast. Pop, right? It's 90% ice because it's going to fill. I'm going to fill it with water when it pops down because of the heat. Well, I've been going and listening to some of the vlogs and stuff and conversations on the RPG Brigade's Facebook forum. And a hot topic that came out recently was racism in gaming, which confused me for a moment. I really had to take a step back and give it some thought. I don't know what racism in gaming means to you. At first I said, well, I don't tolerate racism of any sort at the game table. I don't want players going on and making derogatory comments about our fellow man. I mean, that's generally what we think of when we talk about racism in the modern world is us against them kind of thing. And that's at the end of the day, that's retarded. You know, and some of you are all too young to remember this. But there was a speech given by Ronald Reagan, and he was over in Europe, and I don't remember exactly what the gist of the whole speech was. But this is where before he announced his famous Star Wars initiative, he sat there and said, how many petty differences would be resolved if another species came in from from outer space and would threaten us. We would band together as humans, as humanity, as Terrans, to whoop on whatever came here to kick our ass. I mean, excuse the French, but that's the truth. Excuse the derogatory comment if you're French, but that's the truth, right? That's racism, and in general speaking, it's an born of ignorance, born of an ancient, stupid mindset that somehow whatever the differences between our skin color makes us better or different from the other person. Frankly, I learned to say I hate everybody equally, and I mean that in a general broad term. I get to know people. I don't care what your ethnic background is. I may not understand your whatever you're doing, your cultural differences and stuff, but I'll respect them, especially since this is America and I'm an American, and that's what we do. Our whole concept of our country is based off of the melting pot, and I'm not going to get into a lecture on that stuff. But the real topic was where I got confused on this stuff was the concept of racism in gaming. Now I thought about that for a minute, and let's be honest, racism is thick and heavy in gaming. It's very prominent in the concept. Just between the standard good versus evil, the humanoids versus the monsters, the goblinoids versus the elves, that sort of thing. I mean, it's very thick. If you're a goblin, you're an orc. Most of the goodly races are going to try to whack you, and not because in the strongest sense of we don't like how you look as much as we know what you're going to do and how you're going to act. And that holds true in the real world too. That's one of the reasons racism is still so thick under the surface in our country or in the world in general, because we don't like or comprehend what the other people do and their way of doing things. They're different. They ain't like us. That's because they act different. They do things different. They believe different stuff. And we don't have as much tolerance for that as what we pretend that we do. And we're back to that. I'm not giving you a lecture or a diatribe of my opinion on the subject. But racism in gaming, well, that's I hate to say it, but that's a core mechanic. You kind of not, you can go without it. I mean, I never went out of my way to say, the dwarves hate the goblins and the orcs with a passion, and we have an entire campaign of where the dwarves are eradicating their their goblinoid neighbors. I've never run a campaign like that, but it could be, and it would be considered racially motivated. The arguments are all the same. Oh, we're doing it to protect ourselves and our people, and to protect our property, and to rid the neighborhood of a pest. Well, cover it any way you want. It's still racism, right? The mindset behind it's still the same. It's a rough and tough call. What do you do? I mean, Do you allow it as a GM, as a game master, as a dungeon master? Do you allow this sort of mindset and behavior in your campaign? Now, I have two schools on this, two parallel thoughts about this. There's in-house gaming etiquette or rules where we've got racism based off of the player's beliefs versus what it is they're facing, just like the real world. And as a GM, I try to moderate that. I don't want them to become rolling around with derogatory comments and terms, even in a role-playing form, because it's not healthy. It's not a good thing, and I don't think it's a positive part of the experience, nor is it really in the spirit of the gaming. And I talk about that concept. Maybe I need to ask you guys exactly what you think the spirit of gaming means. And the other side of that, of course, is the alignment against the alignment, or the good versus evil. Well, that's still a form of racism. I mean, it is really, and it's core built into most role playing games. I've run into a few systems. A few systems. Oddly enough, it's more into this. You find it less and less in the sci-fi stuff and the more modern stuff than you do in the archaic hack and slash mindset, the Middle Ages type stuff, because for whatever reason, they tend to be more sensitive. Racism, because we don't have competition. Look at Twilight 2000. We're competing against ourselves, humans versus humans. There's no mutated alien whatevers to whack. Now in Star Wars, racism is thick. It's thick. The humanity, yeah. The humans control the empire, dominate it. What do you do? So in the gaming vernacular, in the gaming perspective, I still believe, and this is just my personal opinion, it's a bad idea to encourage that kind of mindset because it feeds bad stuff. Bad juju is bad juju, and if you feed bad juju, it's just going to get bad juju back. So, leave it where it belongs as part of a discussion off table, or the occasional wink and nod where we know that the goblins are bad for the most part, and the humans and the elves and the dwarves are the good guys, and that's their job to save the good guys from the bad guys. Now, as a GM, I have run, I don't know, hundreds of campaigns in my life, over 40 years of this stuff, and I have run several, and I actually sometimes like doing this kind of mindset where I've run what I call an evil campaign or a dark campaign. This is where everybody's playing with evil or chaotic based players, characters, and in that environment. The Dark Elves of Mazbazaran. I'm sorry I can never pronounce it, but I love Drizzt Tomlin. I have a lot of that stuff, and I love their mind, the intrigue and the skullduggery and the backstabbing and the vibe. There you go. So I have run a number of campaigns of that vibe, and in those things, well, it's the reverse. It's still us against them, but it's the evil against the good. So if a good human shows up, he's in deep doo doo. Or potentially doo doo. So racism in gaming, I don't think it's a good thing to push it, or it's probably a good thing to have the discussion once in a while, as long as we don't overdo it, because it's like politics and religion. It brings out a lot of misunderstandings and hurt feelings, and then makes a lot of good people uncomfortable. Not necessarily in a bad way, my friends, but it's not something we really should overstress, I think. When we talk about the fantasy setting, we're going after the nasty goblins. Well, then they're going after the nasty goblins. Let's just leave the racial epitaphs and the motivations unspoken. Is that right or wrong? I don't know. But it's for another place, another time, not at the gaming table, not during a campaign, not during a session where we're entertaining ourselves. If that's the sort of entertainment you're going for, and you got a group of people that rock with it, okay, okay, but not at my table. Not at my table. Thank you very much for listening, and until the next time, eat a hearty breakfast, eh?